Hello and welcome to our next video. In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and build a default page. So in order to complete this lesson, you should have already completed the lessons where we've downloaded Bootstrap, downloaded jQuery, and some sort of editor must be at your disposal, whether that's Expression Web or Dreamweaver or TextPad or something else that you might be using, whatever suits your fancy that you have available. With that, just double check, make sure you have the Bootstrap available, make sure you have the fonts available, and make sure that you have in your JS both Bootstrap and jQuery that you can use. We're going to be referencing those as we build our default. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with a new HTML file, and we'll basically save that immediately to our default directory, and we'll just call it index.html. So the default Microsoft stuff here is a little bit bloated and old, and we don't really want all that. So what I'm going to do is actually replace this. We want doctype HTML. Now this sets us up for HTML5, which will be great most of the time going forward. There will be some things we have to handle though in case some of your customers or people looking at your websites are actually using an older version of IE other than 9, 10 or better. And so what we'll do is we'll actually put a little bit in place to handle that here. But first we need a head section, of course, and the body section. And in the head section we need 3 meta tags in order to make our page work with Bootstrap. The first one we want to do is just have a char set to just let everybody know this is UTF-8. And we'll go ahead and close that. And we don't put a slash on the end of our meta tags. So if your system puts those in there, you may want to remove them. The next thing we need is an HTTP equiv. And just so you know, if you haven't been doing this, you should be typing this along with me. Now what this will do is give you the practice of working with the code and also just helps you to be familiar with it. So you're not just watching me do this. If you're just watching, you're not going to retain it. And when it comes time to actually use it, you'll have to come back and watch the video again or just copy and paste from the page, but you won't necessarily remember why things are there. So it's a real good idea to just actually type this as we go so that you're keeping up. Here we want content ID equals edge. And we need another meta name, and this is probably, or meta tag, excuse me, this is probably the most important tag because this one is going to set us up to actually be ready to resize responsively. So that's going to let us know that our viewport here, this will get us going, is going to be defaulted to the device width. So what we'll do is content, and we'll say width equals device dash width, and then we'll do initial dash scale equals 1. Now let me just go ahead and make this a little bigger so that we can see all that. So that gives us a viewport that lets us know that this system is going to actually be based on the device width, and that will help us be more responsive down the road. Now Bootstrap will take care of all that for us behind the scenes, so we don't necessarily need to worry about it, but essentially that sets us up and ready to go. So here we'll just have some sort of title. We'll call it My Bootstrap Page. And underneath the title, we need to then reference our CSS. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and reference both of those CSS files that we have, which are the Bootstrap min and the Bootstrap theme. So let me just, first of all, to reference a CSS, if you've never done this, link href equals, and then you select the path. So if you put your stuff in CSS, or if you had it in assets or whatever, wherever you have it, you need to reference that first folder. And then of course we need R2. So what I'm going to do, rather than type this out, to avoid making mistakes and spelling and things, I'm actually going to go into the CSS folder here, and I'm just going to grab this minimized version. I'm going to hit F2, which allows me to quickly grab the title, copy that with Control C, and then I will paste that here. Now that allows me to easily do that without worrying about a typo on my part, which happens a lot. And we'll do a rel equals style sheet. Another nice thing about using the IDE is that a lot of that is filled in for us. We need one more for the theme, so CSS, and then once again we'll go to our theme area, grab the Bootstrap theme min.css. Now again, you could use the full version if you want to try to do some debugging or anything like that, but you should be using the minified version when you're working in production. So go ahead and make sure that you're referencing that, at least at that point. Now we need to do one more thing in the head, and this is actually what's going to help us to respond to IE being less than version 9. So what we do is we actually use a less than bang dash dash, which just kind of gives us a setup here, and we'll say if, so left bracket or left brace, excuse me, if LTIE9. Now that's just going to say if it's less than IE9, and what that will do is allow this system to run some code. And what I'm going to do is actually do an end if first, so that we have our matching close brackets there, and we need that on the end of our end if. And now what we need is 2 scripts in order to make this work. Now you could download these, but once again, we'll actually probably want to pull these from a content development network at some, a content delivery network at some point. And so what I'm going to do is just reference them that way. Now that does mean in order for the page to work, you have to be online. But if you're not working with IE 8, 7, 6, or whatever, this won't be a big deal anyway. This will actually just set your page up so that when you do deploy it, if someone's using that, you can actually handle that through these scripts that are built. Now this is oss.maxcdn.com/libs/html5shiv/3.7.0/html5shiv.js. Yep, that's it. So hopefully you can just grab that from mine rather than typing all that, but if you type it, you'll have it. And then we need one more. It's going to come from the same CDN. Source is going to be https oss.maxcdn.com/libs/respond.js. Now this is what's going to make the older IEs actually work responsively. 1.4.2/respond.minified.js. Now those 2 scripts there, if we're less than IE9, will help us to make sure that we actually respond accordingly. We need to go ahead and have some sort of body right now. If you've taken the HTML course, which I offer for free, you should be pretty familiar with some of this stuff. But H1 tag here, we're just going to have something that says welcome to Bootstrap. And we'll worry about the body content as we continue to build later. At the end of the body, though, we need to reference 2 scripts. Of course, our JavaScript for Bootstrap itself and jQuery. Now, don't freak out if you don't know jQuery. It's not a big deal. You won't need to use it too much, and if you don't get too advanced with it, no big deal. But of course, if you do know it, that will help you down the road to be able to build better websites. So it's something you want to get on your radar. But with that, we're also going to need to include the jQuery first, because Bootstrap does include a lot of jQuery behind the scenes, and it won't work without it for some of the things that we're going to show you throughout this. So what we'll do first is set up jQuery. Now we did download it, but again, if you're using a CDN such as Google APIs, you could just reference that here. Once again, I'm going to grab the title of this file so that I don't screw it up when I type it, especially since there's a version number in here. So jQuery 1.11.0.min. Now you could use jQuery 2. I avoided that because right now most of our customers aren't on IE 10 or better. Maybe it's IE9, one of those 2. jQuery won't work. jQuery 2 won't work with the older versions of IE. So we have to keep that in mind. Unfortunately, most of the world is still using IE less than version 9. In the future, we can hopefully move on to jQuery 2, and we won't have to worry about necessarily handling certain things that IE does. All right, so there's our jQuery reference, and we need one more, which is going to be our Bootstrap reference. So here's JS, and once again, just to save time and errors on my part, we'll just copy that and paste it in here. And again, this is going to be a type equals text/JavaScript. I think you could get by without the type since it is a file script, but I always put those in there anyway, just because of habit. That sets up our default page. So what I can do is actually go here and preview it. And I can preview it in multiple browsers, Internet Explorer, Chrome, and allow them different sizes. I got Internet Explorer 11, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see, welcome to Bootstrap. Now, right now, there's nothing fancy, and if I move this over, you can see that it does wrap, but it would have done that anyway, even without Bootstrap, so we haven't really proven that. But we have our Bootstrap set up. Our default file is ready to go, and we can use this going forward to actually start building our templates or our pages. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.